If you're in midlife and wondering where the hell your desire went or how to get it back and make it hotter than ever, you just found your show. I am Dr. Stacy, clinical sexologist and certified sex coach, and this is the Purple Passion Project, the intimacy and sex podcast for midlife and beyond. Just real spicy conversations about desire, intimacy, and pleasure that will change the way you think about your sex life forever. Let's do it. What if the thing standing between you and the best sex of your life is not your body, it's not your partner, it's not your age, it's a word that someone said to you when you were 17 or a rule that you were handed before you were old enough to actually question it? We need to talk about shame. So I am Dr. Stacy. This episode is brought to you by two of my favorite pleasure playbooks, The Myths and Mindsets That Kill Desire and Communication That Turns You On. Because today we are talking about shame. And shame does two things. It makes you believe that something is wrong with you, and it makes you stop talking about it completely. And so these two guides actually tackle both of these head on. And so if you've ever felt like your desire was wrong, or you just didn't have the words to talk about it, or anything like this with your partner, these were written for you. You can grab them at drstacyfriedman.com at the Pleasure Playbooks shop link. And speaking of breaking the silence around shame, that's exactly what we're getting into today. Welcome to the Purple Passion Project, where we talk about sex, intimacy, and all of the deliciously naughty things that you've been thinking about, but no one gave you permission to say out loud. Midlife is not when your sex life slows down. It's when it gets hotter than ever. So buckle up. Today, I am doing the episode on my own, and we are talking about shame. So this first segment, I want to talk about what is sexual shame and where does it come from? So let's start at the beginning, because before we can even talk about slut shame, religious shame, cultural shame, masturbation shame, or yes, vibrator shame, we need to talk about what shame actually is, because a lot of people confuse shame with guilt, and those two things are completely different beasts. Guilt says, I did something wrong and I feel bad about it. Shame says, I am something wrong, and this means something about me. So do you feel that difference? Guilt is about an action, and shame is more about who you are, your identity. And so it goes into almost your worth, who you are as a person. And when shame gets attached to something as fundamental as your sexuality, your desire, your body, the way that you want to be touched, the way that you feel pleasure, it doesn't just make you feel bad in the moment, it rewires the whole way that you move throughout this world intimately and sexually. So here's the first thing that I need you to hear today. And I mean, really hear it, listen in. Nobody is born ashamed of their body or their desire. Not one person. Nobody. We are not born that way. Shame is learned. It gets installed in us. It gets handed to us by people, by institutions, by cultures. It's like a sponge. It's, we were too young to even question it many times when it's handed to us. We just absorb it like a sponge, carry it into adulthood, and we never ask why. We just don't even stop to ask, wait, is this actually true? Or is this just a story that somebody gave me? And that's where a lot of the issues start, is that we don't ask these questions just because it's ingrained in our brains. As a sexologist and sex coach with over 20 years in this field, I can tell you that sexual shame is one of the single most common things that I see in my practice. It doesn't matter if someone is 35 or 65. It doesn't matter if they're married, single, or starting over. Shame shows up in almost every single conversation that I have about intimacy. And so today we're going to rip it apart piece by peace. So I also want to tell you how shame lives in the body too, because this is the part that surprises people. Shame is not just a thought in your brain. It's an actual physical experience, and it shows up as tension in your chest. It shows up as maybe going silent when you actually want to speak or say something. And it shows up as checking out mentally during sex, even when you want to be present. It shows up as a voice in your head that says, you're too much, you're not enough, you're dirty, you're broken. That voice is not the truth about you or who you are. That's just a script that you've learned over the years. And today we are going to rewrite that script and give you a new one. So I want to do something with you right now. I want you to think about the very first message that you received about sex, not what someone sat down and officially told you. Let's say the parents telling you about the birds and the bees, unless that was really the first one, but what you actually absorbed. If you can think back, think of something that you absorbed that said something about sex that might have been shameful or wrong, or a look on someone's face maybe, or from the silence when you asked a question about sex, or maybe just being called something that you didn't deserve, maybe from a sermon that you had at a church, or from a comment at a dinner table. Just sit with it for a second, and we're going to work with that today. And I'll tell you, my experience is being called a slut because I was flirty and playful. And I remember that sat with me for a while. So that was something that I can share with you. So think about the first time that you had absorbed anything. And so I also want to tell you something that I'm genuinely obsessed with, and it's my community called the Vibe Tribe. And so if you have been listening and thinking, oh my God, yes, that's me. I have all this shame. I have all this crap. There are people inside the Vibe Tribe saying the exact same thing. And it's equal parts fun, naughty, educational. It gives you the kind of connection that you didn't know that you were missing with other people that are understanding the same thing. I show up personally. We have live sessions. There's courses. There's conversations that'll make you laugh, make you think, and make you wonder why you weren't in there sooner. And so go to drstacyfriedman.com, click on Vibe Tribe, and come find your people. I want you to be there to help talk with all of us about all of these different things that you can learn about sex and intimacy. And so now I want to get into a little bit of religious shame. So this one runs really deep. And I want to start by saying something very clearly. I am not here to attack anybody's faith. I'm not here to tell you what to believe or what not to believe. Okay? Remember that. What I am here to do is to help you kind of untangle the difference between your faith, which can be beautiful, grounding, and a meaningful part of your life, and the shame that sometimes gets wrapped up around it like this vice that you can't get away from. Because here's what I see over and over and over again in my coaching practice. People who grew up in religious households, and I'm talking across the board, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, many others, were given very specific messages about sex. And that message was essentially sex is dangerous, basically. Sex is sinful. Sex is something to be controlled, to be managed, to be feared. And desire, especially female desire, that was practically non-existent in the conversation. So what that creates, and this is the part that I really want you to understand, it's a split inside of you. You have the good version of yourself, the faithful, the worthy, the religious self, the righteous self. And then you have the sexual self. And those two feel like they can't exist in that same body at the same time. So people spend years, sometimes decades, trying to shut out one of them and shut them down, usually the sexual one. And then they get married or they get into this relationship and suddenly they're supposed to just flip a switch and feel free, feel turned on and open and animalistic and passionate. And it doesn't work that way. You can't spend 20 years being told your desire is dangerous and then just let it go overnight. The body doesn't work like that. The body has muscle memory. It's nervous system reaction. And so one of the things that I hear most often from clients that carry religious shame is that I still feel guilty every time my husband and I have sex, or if I want to initiate, even though we are married, even though by every measure of my religion, it's completely allowed because we are in a monogamous marriage. The guilt is still there. And that makes complete sense because shame is not rational. It doesn't follow logic. It follows programming. And that programming takes intentional work to actually undo. And so here's what I need you to hold on to. You can be a person of deep faith and have a hot, healthy, connected sex life. They are not opposites. They were never opposites. So whatever you believe about who or what created you, you were given a body that is capable of extraordinary pleasure. And that was not a mistake. Why do we have clitorises as women? Specifically for pleasure. And that is a gift, and you are allowed to receive it. So I'm going to read a few questions that I have received about shame, especially when it comes to religion, and maybe some of these may help you. So the first question I received was, I grew up very religious and I still feel guilty every time my husband and I have sex, even though we are married. Is that normal? Will it ever go away? First thing, yes, it is normal. And yes, it can absolutely go away. But I want to be straight with you. It doesn't just appear or doesn't just disappear just because you now know better. That guilt got wired into you before you were old enough to question it. So you were basically taught that your body was dangerous. And so now when everything is technically allowed, the alarm still goes off, danger, danger. And so what you need to do now is start separating the rule from the feeling. So the rule changed when you got married. The feeling just hasn't gotten caught up with yet. And it will, but you have to actually give yourself permission to feel good. Every time you catch that guilt feeling, say out loud. Remember, guilt is an action. Say out loud, I am allowed to feel this. I am allowed to want this. My pleasure is not a sin. That is not therapy homework. That is just rewiring the brain, and it works. You need to have action, but you need to promote it with healthy thoughts. The other question I got is, my religion says certain acts are sinful, but I want to try them. So how do I deal with that inner conflict? And that's really good, especially when people come to me and they say they have some fantasies, but it doesn't match with their religion or their background. And so here's what I know for sure. That conflict between the wanting different things and the religion is not going to resolve itself by ignoring it. Suppressing your desire does not make it go away. It actually makes it louder and more frustrating. And what I want you to think about is this. Who decided that that act was sinful? That specific act. Who decided? A person actually wrote that rule. People write rules based on the culture, the era, the politics of that time. That does not mean it's the absolute truth about your body or your marriage. It's an interpretation. I'm not telling you to throw out your faith. I'm telling you to just get curious about it. Ask yourself, does this rule serve my relationship? Is this going to keep me in my healthy long-term relationship? That's it. Just get curious. Does it bring my partner and I closer, or does it keep us disconnected? You are allowed to ask those questions. In fact, I think you owe it to yourself to ask these questions, because most religions, the whole idea in the background is community, family, connection, love. And if you don't question things and you are being disconnected or becoming disconnected from your relationship, then it's doing the complete opposite of what your religion is telling you. Next question is, I left my religion years ago, but the shame is still there. Why won't it go away? Because shame doesn't live in your beliefs, it lives in your body. Like I was saying before, you can walk out of a church and never go back, but that shame will follow you out that door if you don't deal with it. So first of all, changing that, what you believe is the first step. But your nervous system, like I said before, doesn't care about your new belief system yet. It still flinches, it'll still freeze. It's still telling you something is wrong when nothing is actually wrong. The way through it is exposure, slowly, consistently, making sure you're choosing pleasure and then sitting with that discomfort instead of running away from it, should I say. So every time you do that and you see nothing bad happens, your body gets a little bit more proof that it's safe. And that is how shame actually leaves. There is something that we're talking about that hits a nerve in this episode, or that connects with you, that you know exactly what I'm talking about. That feeling is information. So knowing what's going on and actually changing it are two totally different things. And that's where the coaching comes in. So I work one-to-one with people who are done just surviving their sex lives and are ready to have a sex life that is hot as hell, that can help you find your desires, your voice, your confidence in the bedroom and beyond. And I do have a free private 30-minute intimacy consult. If you go to drstacyfriedman.com, just click on free consult at the top of the page and let's talk about it. It can help so much, just being able to walk yourself through your thoughts and your feelings. So now I want to talk a little bit about the word slut. We're talking about slut shaming. I'm going to say it, slut, 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 because the more that we say it out loud, the less power it has. And I want to talk about what that word actually has done to people, because it's not a small word. It's a very derogatory word. And I actually got called an absolute slut on one of my Instagram posts, just because I was actually talking about sexual fantasy research. And someone decided to write that. And I just said, thank you so much for the compliment. Obviously, it wasn't meant to be a compliment, but it's not just a mean word that someone says once. A lot of times when people say that, it's an actual insecurity upon themselves. They're uncomfortable about something that they've learned. And so for a lot of people, that becomes the defining moment when you're growing up and you've been called a slut through the years. It's like a before and then an after. And it's like a weight that so many people carry ever since they heard it for that very first time. So here's the truth about slut shaming. It's never really been about behavior, because it's never been about how many people someone slept with or what specifically they do in bed. Slut shaming has always been about control. It's a way to police desire, specifically female desire, and punishing anyone who steps out of this very narrow, very convenient parameter. And you have too much desire, you're a slut. You're too confident in your body and you like to flirt, you're a slut. You enjoy sex too openly, you're a slut. You're asking for what you want in bed, oh, definitely a slut. You've slept with more than 3 people in your lifetime, forget about it. You are slut, slut, slut. And so in here is what makes this even more layered. It goes both directions. So women get shamed for wanting too much. Men get shamed for not wanting enough. I see men in my practice all the time who carry tremendous shame because they don't have the desire or the libido, or they don't want sex as often as their partner, or they've had a season in their life where they were not interested and they were made to feel like something was fundamentally broken about their masculinity. That is the same family of shame, just wearing a different outfit. It's all that same root. You are not allowed to exist as a full sexual being outside of what someone else decided was acceptable. And unfortunately for men is that in society, they are told that there's something wrong with them if they don't have desire and if their desire is less than. And so we need to stop this. And What happens is in midlife, this shows up in some real sneaky ways. So I see women who can't enjoy sex because they're watching themselves from the outside, almost like they're observing their own bodies rather than inhabiting it. And that's shame. That's shame doing that. I see people who have carried fantasies for decades without ever saying them out loud because they are convinced that those thoughts made them a bad person. And I see people who feel like they want sex more than they're supposed to at their age, and they're genuinely terrified that something is wrong with them as well. And especially this last month, if you look at my social media for the month of July, it's all about fantasy. And so many people are saying, I can't share my fantasy with my partner because they think I'm disgusting, and they get shamed for it. They get shamed for their desires. So what happens is they keep quiet and they don't talk about it. And then they live this life that's supposed to be happy and connecting completely alone. Nothing is wrong with you. Your desires, your fantasies are not character flaws. It's not an evidence of damage or that something happened to you. It's your body and your nervous system doing exactly what they were designed to do. It's a signal that you're alive, that you want connection, that you want pleasure. That is deeply, profoundly human. And if someone called you a slut, whether you were 17 or in my case, 55, I want you to hear this directly. That word was never about you. It was about their discomfort with your aliveness. And you don't have to carry it for one more fucking second. Bye-bye. Thank you for the compliment. And that's exactly what I did to that Michelle person on my Instagram, whoever you are. So here's some questions I got. I had a lot of sexual partners in my 20s and I'm embarrassed by it now. How do I stop feeling like damaged goods? Stop fucking counting. Just seriously, stop it. Nobody is keeping score except you. The idea that a woman becomes less valuable the more sexual experience she has is one of the most damaging lies our culture ever gave us. And you bought it because you were handed it before you could think critically about it. And so here's the truth. Every experience you had made you who you are today. Your past does not make you dirty. It makes you the person who lived, the person that is bringing all the experience and knowledge to yourself and your current relationship. The only question worth asking is, did those choices feel right to you at the time? If yes, own them. If some of them did not, just learn from them. Maybe the shame was keeping them from you at that time as well. But either way, you're not damaged. You are human. Another question is, my husband calls me a slut during sex as a compliment, but it triggers me every single time. So how do I handle this? First of all, have the conversation outside of the bedroom, not in the moment, not right after he does it, but at a completely neutral time. So sit down and tell him, when you use that word, my body kind of gets triggered and shuts down. I leave the experience and that's not what I want. It doesn't matter that you mean it as a compliment, but my body hears it and I feel like it's an attack on me and my character, and I can't override it in that moment. So, and then what you're going to do is figure out together what word actually works for both of you. And there are 1,000 of words that can feel hot without dragging in all that baggage of that slut shaming word. So find yours that works. And it's not really about him doing anything wrong. It's about you just protecting your ability to actually be present during sex. And that matters. And I'm sure that your partner would want that as well. Another question. I have sexual fantasies I've never told anyone about. I feel disgusting. Is something wrong with me? Nothing is wrong with you. Not one fucking thing. Do you know how many people are walking around with fantasies that have never said it out loud to a single person? Almost everyone. The brain is creative and your erotic imagination is supposed to be active. That is healthy. The shame that you feel about your fantasies is not evidence that they're wrong. It's just evidence that someone taught you to be afraid of your own brain, your own mind. A fantasy is not a plan. It's not a plan of action. It's not like you're confessing something you did. It's just your brain doing what brains do. They think, they fantasize. You're allowed to have a rich inner erotic life and never feel like or never actually act on any single part of it. And that does not make you disgusting. It makes you normal. Next question. I want sex more than my partner does, and I feel like a freak for it. Is that normal? Yes, completely normal. Desire mismatch is probably the number one thing that I deal with in couples, and it goes both ways. So plenty of women want more sex than their partners, and they spend years feeling like something is wrong with them because the script says men should be the one chasing and doing all of the initiation. That script is crap, complete garbage. Your drive is not a problem. It's the information and what you do with it, how you communicate it, how you and your partner navigate it together. That is the conversation worth having. But wanting sex is never something you need to apologize for. Our next segment is on masturbation shame and vibrator shame. And so we are going there. Masturbation, vibrators, all that good juicy stuff, because if we are doing a full episode on sexual shame and skip this part, we're leaving the most common shame on the table, and I refuse to do that. So let's start with masturbation. I can't tell you how many people, and I mean grown adults, people 40s, 50s, 60s, come to me carrying shame about touching themselves. People who have been doing it their whole lives and still every single time feel like they've done something wrong, or just don't do it because that shame is just sitting there watching. People who have never done it because they were told it was dirty, sinful, or a sign of something is wrong with you or a broken relationship. People who do it in secret from their partners because they're convinced it will be seen as a betrayal or an insult. So let me be very clear about what masturbation actually is. It is one of the most normal, healthy, natural things that a human body can do. It's how you learn what you like. It's how you stay connected to your own body. It's how you manage stress, improve sleep, reduce tension, and maintain a relationship with your own desire. Because when life gets complicated, it's not a consolation prize. It's not something you do because something is wrong. It's something you do because you're a person with a body that wants attention, including your own attention. And so the shame around masturbation comes from the same places that we've been talking about all episode. Religion told many of us that it was a sin. Culture told men it was pathetic and told women it was unnatural or unnecessary. And partners sometimes can take it personally, as if you're choosing to pleasure yourself, meaning they failed you. None of that is true. None of it. And for people in midlife who are navigating this mismatched desire levels, or just going through hormonal shifts, or dealing with illness or separation, masturbation is not just okay. It can be genuinely a lifeline. One thing I want to mention about masturbation, the only time that I really feel that there is an issue is when you're using it instead of connecting with your partner, and there is a disconnect in intimacy or affection or something else going on in your relationship. But if you have a healthy relationship, there shouldn't be any issues. But I will tell you, the amount of dysfunction I see when I talk to people who, especially with religion and culture, they don't masturbate because they feel like they're not supposed to spill their seed. They're not supposed to ejaculate and only do it with their partner. There's a lot of actual physical issues that come up, but we'll talk more about that. So now I want to talk a little bit about vibrators, because there's a lot of shame around vibrators, and it's its own little special category. And I also hear about it constantly. My partner will feel inadequate. It means I can't be satisfied by a real person. I'm too old to be using a toy. If I need a vibrator, something must be wrong with me since I already have a man. I want to dismantle every single one of those. A vibrator is a tool. And that is it. It's a tool that helps your body access pleasure in a way that sometimes your hands or your bodies cannot do. And that's especially true as we get older and our bodies change. So women in midlife dealing with shifts in sensitivity, changes in arousal time, hormonal transitions, a vibrator is not a replacement for connection. It's in addition to your pleasure toolkit. Just like you wouldn't judge someone for using a heating pad for a sore back. You're not going to say, oh, well, my husband can give me a massage, so why should I use a heating pad? These are tools. You don't need to judge yourself for using a vibrator because it's something that helps you feel good. And for couples, I want to say this directly. Bringing a toy in the bedroom is not a commentary on your partner's ability. It's an invitation. You're inviting your partner into a space where you can find more pleasure. And the couples who communicate about toys, who explore together, who let go of the idea that sex has to happen in a very specific way to count as sex, those are the couples that are having the best sex, period. So here's some questions. I've been masturbating my whole life, but I still feel ashamed every time I do it. How do I get rid of that feeling? Stop ending the experience in shame and start ending it in gratitude. I know that sounds simple, but here's what's actually happening. You do it, you feel good, and then you immediately punish yourself for it or feel bad for it. That punishment is reinforcing that shame every single time. So try something different. When you're done, instead of going right away to that shame, don't go into that spiral. Just pause and say, I took care of myself today. That's it. No big declaration. I allowed myself to feel good today. That's it. Just a moment of not punishing yourself. Do that enough times and your brain will start to build a very different association to what masturbation means. The shame does not disappear overnight, but it does quiet itself down every time you refuse to feed it with that punishment. Next question. My partner found out I masturbate and is really upset. They feel like it means they're not enough for me. How do I handle this? Oh, this comes from a myth that needs to die. The idea that if you pleasure yourself, it means your partner has failed you. Your partner's not good enough for you. They're not doing the right things. That's not how any of this works. Your sexuality does not belong entirely to your partner. You are a person with a body and a body that existed before your partner and your relationship existed. And it has needs. And sometimes it's just yours to take care of. Have a direct conversation with your partner and let them know this is not about you not being enough. This is about me having a relationship and exploration of my own body that has nothing to do with how much I want you. It has to do with me learning my body over and over again as the years go, because your body changes, your needs, your wants, your desires, that all changes. And you're not going to know how to incorporate that into your relationship unless you're doing things on your own. And then invite them into a bigger conversation addressing both of your needs. So because often, a partner that reacts this way, there's usually some type of insecurity or something underneath it that might be worth talking about. The next question. I want to use a vibrator, but I'm embarrassed to buy one, and I'm scared my partner will think something is wrong with them. Help. Shop online. Shop with me. I have an entire catalog at drstacyfriedman.com under the shop link under catalogs. You could pick out anything. If you don't know what you want, ask me. Problem solved on that part. You don't have to be embarrassed. You don't have to walk into a store. Just order it to your house just like you would anything else. And don't treat it like some contraband, like some drug or whatever. It's not. It's a tool. On the partner piece, bring it up before you bring it home. So in other words, lead with desire, not an apology afterwards. Just tell your partner, I want to explore more fun ways to feel pleasure, and I want to do that with you. Include your partner. A toy is not a replacement. It's an addition. Think of it like adding a new ingredient to a recipe you already love. You're not saying that recipe is bad, but maybe if I add a little topping of whipped cream, that could give it a whole different experience. You're basically saying, let us make it even better. And if your partner still feels threatened by that, that's a conversation in itself worth having, because their insecurity is real, but it's not a reason for you to stay disconnected from your own pleasure. And there's plenty of toys right now that are non-phallic that you can get that don't look like anything other than a grinding pad or a thing to put on your finger to touch yourself. Very simple, easy, non-threatening type of toys. So let me know if I can help you with any of those. Next question. I grew up being told masturbation was a sin. I'm not even religious anymore, but I still feel dirty when I do it. Is that ever going to change? Yes. Yes, yes, yes. And what is happening is exactly what I described earlier. The beliefs changed, but the body didn't get the update. So shame that gets installed early, especially shame from religion, runs deep. It doesn't just evaporate into the thin air when you stop believing that thing that created it. What changes it is repetition. Every time you choose pleasure and don't punish yourself afterwards, you're sending your body a new message. So over time, that new message will get louder and louder than the other one, the old one, and you'll start reprogramming something that got written into you a long time ago. It takes patience. But it absolutely changes. Let me know if you need help with that, because this is one of the things I love, is helping people find their sexuality and get rid of the shame. So let's talk a little bit about cultural shame. This is one that often goes the most unexamined because it feels the most personal. It connects you most to your identity. And so it feels like if you question that shame that comes from your culture, you are somehow questioning your entire identity, your entire life, your family, your community, the people you love. And that's genuinely heavy. That's a genuinely heavy thing to have to carry. Here's what I know from 2 decades of working with people on this. Cultural shame around sex is real. It's powerful, and it is keeping a lot of people quiet in their relationships, in coaching conversations, in intimate moments where they desperately want to be present, but just can't quite get there. Every culture has its own rules about sex, what's acceptable, what you're not supposed to talk about, what women are supposed to do or not do, what men are supposed to feel, not feel, what counts as being respectable, what gets you cast out of society. And then when you grow up inside of those rules, and then all of a sudden you hit midlife and you find yourself, questioning them, or your desires don't fit this container that you were handed and saying everything's got to fit in this little container. Or maybe your partner comes from a completely different background. You're going to have this collision. And that collision very often shows up as shame, confusion, or just a difficult, unhappy relationship. And so one of the things that makes cultural shame particularly hard to work through is that it often doesn't have language. So what I mean by that is that people come to me and they can't quite articulate what they're feeling because nobody in their family or community ever talked about it. Where religious shame, it's a little bit more of this is what it is, this is what you should and shouldn't do. Cultural shame is just, there's really no words for it in the world that they grew up in. So they carry it around, they're not able to explain it, and being silent, as we established today, is where shame completely thrives. And I also want to say something that I think really matters. A lot of these conversations about sex and shame center a very specific kind of experience: white, Western, middle class. And if your background does not fit that mold, if you grew up in an immigrant household, or if your cultural or religious traditions look different from what gets talked about in podcasts like this one, or if the shame that you've carried has layers that most people don't even have language for, I want you to know your experience is completely valid as well, and it belongs in this conversation. And you deserve the support that actually understands where you're coming from. So these are some questions that I received on cultural shame. So in my culture, talking about sex is simply not done. How do I even begin to have these conversations with my partner? I hear this and see this all the time where one of the people comes and reaches out to me and says that they're not having the conversation. They don't know how to fix it, don't know how to bring it up. So this is actually a really, really good question. You don't start with a big conversation. You start with a sentence. That's it. Just pick a sentence, something low stake. Something, don't just say, oh, this is my fantasy and I want you to know. That's too high stakes. You want to have something maybe that you heard. I heard something online or on TV, or I saw something online, something that you're curious about, and just say it out loud to your partner. You could literally say, oh, I heard something today that made me think about us, or I was wondering what your thoughts were. What do you think? You're not overhauling your whole entire dynamic of your relationship in one night. You're just opening that door. You're just making a little crack in that door. And the more you do that, the easier it gets. So you're starting to build a new language between the two of you. And that takes time, but it literally starts with just one simple sentence. And just follow that path. Next question. My family has very specific expectations about sex and marriage. I don't agree with them, but I still feel guilty going against them. How do I move forward? Yeah, it's not easy going against what your parents taught you. It's a lot of guilt. So the guilt you feel is not a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign you love your family and you don't want to hurt them. Those are completely two different things. But here's what I need you to hear. You don't have to choose between loving your family and then living a life that actually fits who you are. Those can coexist because you are separate entities. The question is not, how do I stop feeling guilty? The question is, whose life are you living? Are you living yours or theirs? Because at some point you have to decide whose life you want to live. And deciding to live your own life is not a betrayal. It's just growing up. That's what we do as parents. We help nurture our children until they get old enough to build a life of their own and be who they were meant to be. Next question. I'm a person of color, and the shame I carry around sex is wrapped up in race, family, religion, and culture all at once. It feels overwhelming and like nobody gets it. Where do I even start? Whew, I hear you. This is big. You are right, because these conversations don't always make room for that kind of a layered experience, and they should. And so what you're describing is not simple at all. It's not just one thing to untangle. So it's race, it's family, it's religion, it's culture, all of these braided together, all showing up in the most intimate parts of your life at the same time. That's a lot to hold. And the fact that that question was even asked to me means that you're ready to do something with it. And that takes a lot of courage. So first, you are definitely not alone in this, even though it could absolutely feel that way. And you're right that a lot of these conversations may not reflect your personal experience. And so that is a real gap. And I know it's frustrating. So here's what I want you to start with: yourself. Before you talk to anybody, before you find a community, before you do anything, give yourself permission to acknowledge that what you are carrying is very layered. It's not just one thing. It's your family, your culture, religion, the way you were raised, the messages about your body that got tangled up into all that shit. That is heavy stuff. And so the first step is just letting yourself say, this is a lot and I deserve to sort through it. And then from there, find people who actually get it. It could be a coach like me, a counselor, a therapist, a different podcast that talks about all this kind of stuff, a community of people that understand, which I have the Vibe Tribe community, and that's people midlife dealing with all different types of stuff when it comes to sex. Maybe a friend, a good friend of yours, a pastor, somebody who understands, but look for voices that reflect your world, not just what you typically hear in spaces such as this. Your experience has layers, and it deserves real support to get through those layers, not just a one-size-fit-all type of answers. So you deserve someone who meets you exactly where you are. Let me know if I could help. So I want to make sure that we go back to some of those pleasure playbooks that we talked about at the very beginning, because they do go hand in hand with everything that we're talking about today. And the first one is the myths and mindsets that kill desire. And it's all about shame, because shame is one of the biggest stories killing your desire and your pleasure. And this guide helps identify every single one of those scripts, helps you rewrite those scripts. They give you dares, different types of prompts, activities. And the second one is communication that turns you on, because here's the thing: when you carry shame, you stop talking, you go silent. And that silence is where your desire will go to die. So this playbook gives you the actual words and the tools to start having the conversations that you've been avoiding. Both are $27 each. Both start the moment you download them, and both are in the show notes waiting for you right now. There's over 16 pleasure playbooks total that cover intimacy, desire, communication, connection, men and women's issues, kink, fantasy. Something in there has your name on it, I guarantee it. So go grab yours and start making the changes that you've been putting off. You have already taken the first step by listening. So now take the next one and actually bring action to your situation. So I want to leave you with 5 things that I need you to walk away with knowing today. Number 1, shame is not the truth about you. It's a story that was handed to you by someone else who had their own fears and their own limitations. You didn't choose it, but you can choose to put it down starting today. Number 2, your body was designed for pleasure. So whatever you believe about, where you came from, who created you, the capacity for desire and pleasure was built into your body. It's not an accident. It was not a mistake. And you were allowed to receive it without punishing yourself. Number 3, slut shame, religious shame, cultural shame, masturbation shame, vibrator shame. Different packages, but same damage. They all deliver the same message. Who you are and what you want is wrong. Every single one of them is a lying mother. Okay? Lying. Number 4, shame lives in silence, like I said. So every time that you bring something into the light with a coach, with a partner, with yourself, with a friend, you take some of its power away. The more you talk about it, the more it leaves, the more space you have for good juju. All right. But finding one place to tell the truth is where the healing starts. You don't have to tell everyone everything, just that one place. Number 5, you showed up for this episode today, and that matters. So give yourself credit for that. Pat yourself on the back. Now take one thing that you've heard and let it mean something. Let it make a difference, and let it be the beginning of something different for you in your relationship with yourself or with a partner. So before I let you go, I want to give you permission slip for today. You have permission to want what you want, to feel what you feel, to touch yourself, to use a toy, to have fantasies you have never spoken out loud to anyone, to want more sex than you think you are allowed to want, to be sexually alive, desiring human beings at whatever age you are, whatever background you come from, and whatever you have been told about yourself. That shame you've been carrying was never yours. You picked it out from someplace else. Someone else gave it to you because you did not have a choice, but you have a choice now. This is your life, your body, your relationship, and you can start putting it down today, right now. That shame shit, right now, in this moment. That is your permission slip. Take it, keep it, and use it every damn day. So that is a wrap on another episode of the Purple Passion Project, where we show up, go deep, and never once pretend that your sex life does not matter. So until next time, stay curious, stay turned on, and never apologize for wanting more. And remember, your sex life does not have an expiration date. Now go live it. See you next time.
This has been the Purple Passion Project with host Dr. Stacy Friedman. Tune in each week as Dr. Stacy breaks down walls, busting myths, and gives you permission to want more with no shame, no filters, and definitely no small talk. Check in every Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern, on your favorite streaming platforms. We look forward to seeing you next time. Be sure to visit drstacyfriedman.com to learn more.